I'm going to look in more detail into the Andrew Malkinson wrongful conviction later this evening on Sean Atwood's show. But for now, just a summary of what's going on. Andrew Malkinson's team want a statutory public inquiry into the role of Greater Manchester Police Force, the Crown Prosecution Service, and the Criminal Cases Review Commission. What role these three institutions had in his miscarriage of justice. Now, in order to be sound, a statutory public inquiry, which would take time, would then be able to compel disclosure, and people who had done wrong could be held responsible. Now, the government is reluctant to go down that route because precisely because people could be held responsible. And one of those, interestingly, is the leader of the opposition, Sir Keir Starmer. Now, Sir Keir Starmer, from 2008, was head of the CPS, the Crown Prosecution Service, and has always said that he had a personal interest in whatever happened at the CPS at that time. He took full responsibility for every decision of the CPS when he was in charge. And so the question is whether or not he would appear voluntarily at any inquiry. And the real issue is how much was known quite early on that would and how much was known about the DNA, that there was DNA on the victim's clothing in a crime-specific area that was discovered in 2007. So that's before Sir Keir Starmer became head of the CPS. And then it was effectively ignored in appeals to the CCRC twice. And in 2009, the CPS's head of complex casework said that the new evidence was surprising, but they'd already known about it in 2007. They decided not to do any further work on the case unless it was brought to appeal. And yet, Malkinson's lawyers had been informed, sort of teased. We're not going to do anything, but this is the new evidence, which actually exonerates your client. Now, the CPS, the thing that Sir Keir Starmer was controlling, is under an obligation to look at any case that's where there is doubt about the safety of the conviction. Well, clearly, if that evidence was found in 2007 about another person's DNA and the absence of any DNA relating to Malkinson on the clothing in a crime-specific area of the victim, then that presumably would be evidence that that should be looked at. So therefore, the CPS potentially is in danger of not following its own rulings at the earliest possible opportunity. Well, we've gone. We go from 2007, when that evidence was identified, to 2017, when Malkinson was allowed out. And in the meantime, Malkinson could have been released earlier when he served his sentence, but that sentence was extended because he refused to admit to something that demonstrably he never committed, to a rape he was never responsible for. He refused to admit it. So he was further punished when the evidence existed that he was potentially innocent. And it's that area that I think requires investigation. Now, of course, there will be deflection, and the deflection will be to look at the original case and look at the trial and look at the assessment of evidence. But the real focus must be on why the CPS did not act as it was under an obligation to do. Did Sir Keir Starmer know, as he boasts, that everything that happened in the CPS since he took office had his personal interest? So did he not know, or did he know and he didn't care? And that particular issue, I think, is very important, given the fact that this is a man who is leading the opposition and potentially Prime Minister. This is something that I suppose the government can put off until next year or after Keir Starmer is Prime Minister. But it's going to come as a blow to the British government if the then Prime Minister is found to have either been ignorant when he claimed to be on the ball, or to have been deliberately obstructive about a case which looked as if it was a matter of an incorrect application of justice. I think Keir Starmer's involvement is very worrying, and we can all talk about lessons to be learned. It's a cute phrase, but it doesn't really mean anything. Now, a second statutory public inquiry is demanded by the families of Lucy Letby's victims. So that will also be interesting to see whether or not that moves forward, because again, there is evidence of people who should have known better already in possession of the facts and allowing this problem, A, to fester, and B, allowing Lucy Letby access to other victims, even after she was under suspicion. Our system just looks shoddy, and like the hospitals in the Lucy Letby case, our system seems more involved in reputation protection than in the protection of victims, and in the protection of people, of ordinary people. More concerned to protect the reputation of the institutions that are faulty. And that doesn't look good when one of the people involved is likely to become our next Prime Minister, more interested in protecting the institution than protecting people.